Okay, are we ready?
Unfortunately, my pants are quite constricting.
That's tough. Why don't you put jeans on when no one's gonna see it, and then you're gonna change out of it later?
Because for me, it's like this outfit screams I'm prepared to do the things that I need to do today.
Okay, and you are.
Pajama shorts mean go to sleep, baby girl.
Heard.
So.
Anyway, welcome back. My name is John.
I'm Sierra.
And this is And They Were Readers. No longer on vacation.
Oh, bummer.
I know.
Wow. It's like we're actors, but we're not. This is who we are.
We are back from vacation, unfortunately. And it is the end of another month. How are you doing? July is over.
Yeah.
A lot has happened.
It's been harder to stay hydrated.
It has. With the heat out here,
Whoa.
Drink your water, please. Yeah, so it's the end of another month, which means another wrap-up. But first...
Oh, yeah.
John went to... I went to the...
You're like, I don't speak about myself as a person. That's crazy.
I went to the bookstore the other day, and I decided to do one of those blind date with a book things, which I usually am kind of afraid of, but I went for it this time. So I'm going to read it, like how it's described, and if you guys want to take a moment to guess, you can like pause afterwards, try to figure it out, put it in the comments.
That's cute. I have no idea what this book is.
It's a fantasy. Love this.
It was... When you sent me a picture of this, it was the brightest thing I've ever seen.
It was so bright, and I think I am just like a squirrel, like easily attracted to very shiny things.
That is 100% correct.
Cool. So it says, inspired by Nigerian mythology, it's the first in a duology. To save her family, she must kidnap the prince.
Oh.
Yeah. And a painful past triggers reckless action.
Ooh. Do you have any guesses?
I have no guesses.
I don't know any Nigerian mythology.
Take your guesses. And I'm going to open it right now.
Wait, I have a question.
Okay.
Do you think that handwriting looks like yours a little bit?
Like mine?
Yeah, look at that U. That D and the U.
That's
and the
true.
O.
It's me. I did this.
Yeah. When you first sent it to me, I was like...
You were like, did you do it for yourself? Yes. That's crazy.
And I was like, no. It's not exactly his handwriting, but it's very similar to your handwriting.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Oh. Maybe that's why you were attracted to it.
Maybe. Oh.
Good cover.
It is Forged by Blood, book 1 of the Tainted Blood duology. In the midst of a tyrannical regime and political invasion, Demi just wants to survive. To avoid the suspicion of the non-magical Ajays who occupy her ancestral homeland of Ife. This is going to be tough.
Yep.
It's fantasy.
Good thing that you're going to read it to yourself in your head.
Yeah.
Nah.
To escape King Sorensen's brutal genocide of her people, the darker-skinned, magic-wielding Oluso, and to live peacefully with her secretive mother while learning to control the terrifying blood magic that is her birthright. Okay.
This looks cool.
It does look cool.
I'm excited to hear your thoughts.
The second one is called Exiled by Iron.
There you go.
Okay. Anyway, that's that.
So fun. Okay, now it's time for the wrap-up.
The wrap-up. So, somehow I have 10 books. Not somehow. I was on vacation. It makes sense.
Yeah, we read a lot more on vacation.
Yeah, and a lot of them are really small. You'll see.
Though I was working, I was like, I'm clearly on vacation because I read double the amount I normally would.
That's true. Yeah.
So
this is the month we were waiting for you.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
I was waiting so. And I did read some good books.
Oh, yeah. I'll start because this is how we ended the last wrap-up. So Sierra ended it by talking about Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. And literally almost while she was talking, I was on Amazon, like, I'm just going to buy this right now.
Like, he was going to do it, but then he's like, maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah. And then I did. So, Of Mice and Men, we already talked about it. I think I gave it like a 3.75, and it might be a 4.
I did it too.
Yeah.
Wait, I'll check.
I like it. So, we already described what it's about, so I won't get too much into details. 2 guys. One of them has some kind of, like, learning disability. And he doesn't know his own strength. Like, he's a bigger dude, and he just like likes to take care and like touch little things, but sometimes he doesn't know
his own strength
and how to be gentle enough. And that just kind of leads to a lot of issues for the other guy, for their pairing in general. it ends in such a sad way.
And it's like the last 2 pages.
Yeah. And then it's done.
And then you're like, that's exactly how it should end.
Yes.
But I don't want it to end like that.
You're like, wait, but there has to be something
more,
else.
but it's not. There's not
That's
more.
crazy.
Yeah. So it's a good classic. I think it's short.
Yeah, it's so short. You could read it. I read it in one sitting. Yeah.
And then last month, John read The Book Thief, and I started my month with The Book Thief, and I finished it. Oh my gosh, yay! So again, we talked about it last month, so I'm not going to go too much into depth with like what the book's about. But essentially, World War II from the perspective of death.
Yep.
I think it was a 4.75 for me the entire read until the last chapter.
And then it got better or worse?
It got to a 5.
Oh.
I think that I didn't cry. Maybe because everyone told me I was going to cry, so I just didn't cry, you know?
Stop doing that.
Because when I'm like, oh, I'm gonna cry, I'm like, fine, actually, about it. I was like, oh, I was waiting for so much worse.
Yeah.
But I think when you grow up in the U.S. specifically, you learn about World War II every year.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing to like know history and to be aware of the atrocities of our world.
Absolutely.
But so I think that's why there wasn't like this emotional reaction, was because I have studied World War II a lot. But I think the way that Death is able to describe the relationships between the characters is so beautiful. And I think it's a really I'm sad that I didn't get to read this in 9th grade.
Yeah.
5 stars. Wow. She got the first 5 stars of the year.
Wow, that's big for you. Cool.
Oh.
I know. Isn't it beautiful?
I love this so much.
I have 5 of them now.
It's so beautiful.
I had 1.
Did you buy this version of the cover in England when we were there?
Of Never Let Me Go?
Yes.
Yes. And that's what
the start
kickstarted
of
this whole
because
thing.
These are the best covers, I think, of Ishiguro.
Yeah.
But I got a thrifted copy of Never Let Me Go that's like a girl is dancing.
Sure.
And it's yellow and it's like faded. I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But you got the cassette tape, and I was so jealous. It's this deep, rich blue.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's covers. That's how I feel.
So, yeah. If you're watching this channel, you're probably like, these guys love Kazuo Ishiguro. And it's not that we don't, or that we really do. There's just something in his writing that makes us keep coming back.
It's, like, addictive.
It's addictive. So, this is, like, my 4th one of the year.
But I don't love the books that I read. Like, it's like, none of them are 5 stars, but I keep coming back. Same thing with Zadie Smith. None of them are 5 stars. Oh, Intimations was. But that was nonfiction. Anyway, but I keep coming back.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, if you've been here, you know, but I started with Never Let Me Go years ago.
Which apparently is the best one.
Yeah, and then I read The Remains of the Day, which was, like, nice. And then I read Claire in the Sun, which was better. And then I read Pale View of Hills, which was nice again. And then now I have the, like, something with jazz, or whatever it's called. Something with art. It's the book you got was An Artist of the Floating World. There you go.
We had never heard of it.
Never.
But if you saw our book haul from last week, or like the last book haul we did, you saw that I bought it because Kazuo Ishiguro.
That we also had never heard of.
Never heard of.
Yeah.
And it was a fantasy.
And it's a beautiful
You've
cover.
written so much, sir.
So Pale View of Hills is about is about kind of like these 2 moms, and they're living in is it Nagasaki? Yes. I want to say it. Yeah. Good job, John. Nagasaki after World War II, and they talk about like how the town has bounced back and things like that. There's it's about like motherhood.
I know why.
Yeah. Okay. It's a short book, so I don't want to like give away basically anything, but the like big twist. This was the most predictable of the twists for me that I've ever read into Kazuo, but not in a bad way, because the story wasn't necessarily like trying to make you wonder what was going to happen. It was trying to really dissect the relationships between the characters. So it was a relationship between our main character and her husband, the relationship between our main character and her daughters, the relationship between the other mother and her daughter. And that will all make sense if you know what the book is about. All of Kazuo's books are a meditation on some kind of topic in a roundabout way. And I think that's what makes us keep coming back, is you do learn a really beautiful lesson most times.
Yeah.
Just sometimes it can get a little boring, or sometimes you're like, what are we doing?
Whoa, what if that's the point? Like,
and it might be.
You're pondering, and he gives space for you to ponder what you're thinking personally within the space of like nothingness within the book.
And most
That'd be crazy if that was actually the artistic choice.
Most of these books, upon thinking on them like much later than reading them, that's when I'm like, wow, he really like, you really did teach me a lot.
Yeah.
Like, the remains of the day, I was like, yeah, this book is meh. And then I just kept thinking about it, and I was like, it's kind of pretty. Like, I'm going to cry.
His writing does make you think beyond the book.
But anyway, to wrap up Pelvial Pills, I do recommend. I think I recommend all the Cosmos.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where I am now. Maybe I am a Cosmo stan.
This is a journey. You're witnessing a journey.
Yeah. I went through therapy in the past 5 minutes just talking to you guys. So thanks.
The next book I read was Passing by Nella Larson.
Yeah.
I told you in my summer books, like my plan, or what's it called?
TBR?
Yep, our TBR. I totally
Hey,
that
this is
one.
a booktube channel.
Right. That I was going to read more classics, and I did. So Nella Larson's Passing is essentially about this woman who's technically passing, but she lives her life as a black woman, and she runs into a woman who is passing as well and choosing to marry a white man.
Explain what passing is for the audience.
Oh, what is passing? How do you explain? You want to explain it?
Just because you said it a lot, and I
Yeah,
don't know if people know it.
that's true.
So passing is the term that you use for someone who is like historically, ethnically black, but their skin is light enough to pass in society as white.
Yeah. Okay.
Continue.
So in this book, she like runs into this woman, and they have this friendship, and it's kind of a toxic friendship. But the black woman who's living as black is talking to this white woman and meets the husband, who's white and super racist.
Oh.
And you kind of learn about all of those dynamics happening in the 20s, I think. Actually, that's a good question.
Passing came out in 1929.
Okay, 1929. Okay, great. Yeah, so I think it's set in the 20s, and this book came out in 1929 to talk about this complex relationship between race and society and surviving and also thriving. Like, what does that look like in society? Because the black woman who's living as black is doing really well for herself, and so in the 20s, there is this stereotype that you don't do well for yourself if you're black, right? But that's just false. And so it was pushing against that narrative with a very clear story. And then someone in the comments said that it reads a little bit like a horror or like mystery.
Oh.
And I wouldn't say necessarily horror, but it does give you that same feeling of like the pit in your stomach that you're like, something's wrong with what's going on.
Tension.
But it's just tension. And there's just the conclusion is like, what the, again? What happened? How did that happen? That's crazy. And you said, what? That's even wilder. I really liked this book. I wish I had read this in college.
So Greek Lessons by Han Gong, I think, it was honestly like phenomenal. I think I texted Sierra and I was like, why is this so pretty?
This is my favorite like from this author.
Oh really?
Out of the 3.
More than The Vegetarian?
Yes, way more.
Wow.
The Vegetarian's number 3.
Whoa!
Yeah. It's Greek Lessons.
Okay.
Human Acts.
And then The Vegetarian. Okay. I loved it. The writing was art. The prose phenomenal.
He texted me angry. He was like, "Why did you not tell me how stunning this prose is?" And
It's so good.
I'm sorry.
It's so good. So it is about a woman who, like, over time, kind of loses the ability to speak, and then a man who is slowly losing his eyesight as he goes on in life. Right. So he's becoming more and more blind, and they kind of come together in a Greek lessons classroom. Yeah.
The lessons are Greek.
The lessons are Greek. And you get a lot of their lives separately. Like, it goes back and forth between their perspectives. And the way that the writing is different between each of them is crazy. Like, the words...
She's so talented.
She's so talented. The woman who is losing her ability to speak, you can, like, the way... I'm trying to see it. Like, there's a part where, like... and she made a noise somewhere, like, deeper than her throat or something, like, because she can't say it, so, like, it's, like, somewhere stuck in here. And then when the guy is looking back on his past life, the things that he describes are so vibrant and colorful, but then when you're in his normal life today, it's so black and white and so fuzzy, because that's how he's seeing the world.
Oh,
and
so good.
Oh,
so good.
It's so good. So... Yeah. Highly recommend. I don't remember what I gave it, but it's at least a 4.5 or something.
Yeah. It's good. It's good.
It's good. And I got this cover, which is the cover I wanted. That's one of the reasons I didn't buy this book for a while.
Because the cover that is in the U.S. actually is trash.
Yeah, it's just trash. And that's
I got it when I think that's why you probably didn't read it for so long. Because I got it from the library from the U.S. cover, and he was like, okay.
Yeah, I was like, this book is gross.
Yeah.
And I had seen this cover before, so I knew it was out there.
Yeah.
I knew I could get it.
So you did.
So I did.
So you did.
Read it.
Okay, so the next one that I'm gonna talk. Oh, so then I got into our buddy reads for the summer. And that'll be the next video you see.
Yes.
So we read The Tenant of Wildfell Hall.
We did.
And Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. So we're not gonna fully talk about those today. Actually, I don't know if we're not gonna talk about them at all, right?
Probably not.
Yeah. So tune in next week if you really want to know our thoughts about these books.
Yeah.
Really briefly, Tenant of Wildfell Hall is by Anne Bronte, one of the Bronte sisters.
Yep.
Is a classic romance, but really talks about the feminist movement. And then this is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Hit the scenes in 2022, I think.
Sure.
And Abby Jimenez blew up similarly to Emily Henry. Emily Henry is even blurbed on here. And it's a romance that a lot of people liked. And in someone's video last year of the best books of 2023, this book was really up there in the booktube community. So we were like, okay, we'll read it.
Yeah.
And so see that next week.
Yeah. Tune in.
Yeah. So we buddy read that, and then because we were on vacation, we started getting to a place where we just started sharing books.
Yeah.
I don't know why I brought so many books on vacation. Because we're like, okay, we read this and you have to read it now.
Yeah.
And now's the time.
But before we did that.
Yeah, you did.
I did one more.
Yep. Before you went on vacation, you did read this.
Okay, so this is White Nights by Dostoevsky.
Mm-hmm.
If you know who Jack Edwards is, which, I mean, if you don't, that's fine, but if you do.
I don't know how you're here.
Yeah, it'd be kind of crazy. Anyway,
I'd be impressed.
He posted one video saying you don't know heartbreak until you read White Nights by Dostoevsky, and it basically made White Nights into a book talk book because it blew up. And I remember right after it came out, I looked on Amazon for it, out of stock. The internet went crazy. You guys went crazy. So finally, things calmed down, and I forgot about it. And then I was like, oh, I do want to read a Dostoevsky. Let's see. Oh my goodness, Jack is right. The heartbreak. I haven't felt heartbreak, actually, because this man did, and I have never felt this until I read it in this book. White Nights is basically, it's this guy that meets this girl, they're living in Russia, and they end up talking for, I think it's 4 nights that they come and they meet, and he finds the girl crying, you figure out why she's crying, and they just talk back and forth, and they're really vibing. The banter is excellent. And and then, how do I do this without spoiling it? Just read it.
Okay.
It's very short.
He's
You'll read it in a
telling me
night.
to read it the whole month,
Yes.
and I finally got it on Libby, but then I came back home and work started immediately.
The one thing I will say about this book is it's kind of similar to Greek Lessons in the sense that the way the character describes the city that he's walking through and experiencing is in direct correlation to his emotions and how he's feeling about love and just how he's feeling emotionally.
You love that. That is one of your favorite things.
Love that.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's
Cool.
Read White Nights. Jack Edwards did not lie. Never has.
That's not true. There have been times where I feel like I've been led astray by that man.
Because he shared his opinion and yours was different?
You just said he never lied.
Not a lie. Simply not a lie.
You're right, I'm wrong.
Do you want to speedrun our buddy reads then?
Buddy reads!
Okay.
Buddy reads!
These weren't actually buddy reads, these were
hey, you have to read this.
Yeah,
hey,
we would read them and we'd be just swapping back and forth.
Which is the best thing about vacation with your best friend who loves to read too.
Yeah.
I love it.
So which one first? Which one did we read first? Technically, you did Between the World and Me first.
I did. Okay, Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates is one of the best books on systemic racism in the U.S. It has been on my list for forever. So back when we were starting our reading journey, we both read a lot of books by Black authors who were talking about their experience in a nonfiction manner.
Yeah.
And we did not read fiction. And so it was on my list from then, and I was bulldozing through them, and then I was like, I am a little tired because I'm living and also reading, right? And so it dropped off the list, but I don't know what brought it back to my attention. I think I was in the mood for some nonfiction, and I was ready to learn again. I picked that one up. I was on Libby as an audiobook, and I started reading it, and it discusses the intersection of privilege and being Black, and the privileges that you might get in society, but the reality that you cannot change who you are or what you look like. And that inherently in the system has things that have been historically underserved or disregarded. And I think that the way he writes is like poetry, which we'll talk about the book that we read afterwards. We read James Baldwin.
Yep.
And in reading James Baldwin, I was like, oh, Ta-Nehisi really took what he learned from the way James Baldwin wrote and put it in his writing because it was so lyrical, but it was nonfiction. And so I finished part 2 of the book and I looked at John, I was like, you have to listen to this. And we share a Libby now for both of our libraries because we live in different counties.
Yep.
And so I was clutch. Like, yeah, it's really clutch because sometimes I don't have a book and he has a book and it's very nice. Yep. But yeah, so I said, you have to read this if you are in a space to feel comfortable to read this. But like, I don't know, sometimes I don't like making people read about
That's fair.
Systemic racism when it's your experience or your culture. Like, I don't think it's my job to tell someone to read your culture. But I was like, if you do, know that you will feel so seen by this book.
Yeah. So, and I did. So I started after Sierra finished it, and then I flipped and then started the audiobook
over again because it was still within our 21 days of having the book.
Yeah, there was one day I was eating breakfast and Sierra was like on a meeting and she
we were sitting across from each other. I'm in a meeting for work and he's eating breakfast.
Yes, and she could tell by my facial like I don't know structure.
This is like energy too.
She was like, oh, he's listening to the book.
Yep.
Because I just ended up staring out the window and I was just like eating my egg.
Yeah.
Like
and
slowly. And I'd be like, oh, and I'd just like nod, because it is very lyrical. It's very potent isn't the word I'm looking. Pertinent. There you go.
I would also say poignant.
Yeah, sure.
All these.
Not potent. I mean, sure. Yeah.
It is rich. It is short. So potent, I think, might actually be appropriate.
There you go.
Yeah.
But it's very relevant to the world right now, and to like America and what it means to be Black in America. And, like, fears that I had as a Black man living in this country, like, he put into words for me. And I was, like, sitting there and I was like, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like, that, I couldn't have said it better myself.
A lot of the books that I read this month, I felt like should be required reading. Yeah. And not for every age group. Yeah. Hear me? I am all about age appropriateness. I am an educator.
Yes, yep.
But I think you know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So that's Between the Worlds and Me.
I think I read Abby Jimenez in there at that point. So after all that journey, I read The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin.
Yeah, we did.
And at the time, you didn't have this copy with you, right?
No.
Okay, so
I bought it when I got back.
He borrowed it from me. So I was reading this, and I had never read James Baldwin before.
Oh, yeah.
So this was my first James Baldwin, and I wanted to read James Baldwin for a while, ever since you read Giovanni's Room last summer.
Yep.
And this one was recommended in Delapo Adedekун's comment section. The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin is a nonfiction book, but it is letters to fake people. Like, it's not real letters sent, but there are letters of his actual thoughts, and they were published separately in different, I think it was news, what's the word?
Articles?
Not articles, but, like, newspapers.
Oh.
My brain is, like, really glitching, sorry, guys. And they were published separately, and it was all of his thoughts around religion and being Black and queer and like all of the things that were pertinent at the time in the 60s.
Yeah.
And talking about the movement. Okay. I think that the first part actually should be required reading in high school.
The first letter?
Yes. It's very short.
It is.
There's nothing morally swaying one way or the other.
Yeah.
It is just like, here's straight up what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good letter because it's James Baldwin, hypothetically, maybe really, sending a letter to his nephew, who has the same namesake, and talking about lineage and history. And I just was like, this is short. This would be a really good read if I was teaching 11th grade English. Yeah. So yeah, that would be what I would recommend. The rest of it, I think, holds way more nuance and harder to teach to 11th graders. Yeah. And so, from that perspective, I don't know about that. But I think that the first part should be
the first letter you can read in a class period.
Yep.
As a class,
right?
And
dissect it.
It's like
and look
7
at
pages.
The literary elements of it, and also the social elements of it, and history. Like, you could see the intersection between those different subject areas, even. So you can do like lateral integration from that perspective.
It is one of those that you could underline something on every single page.
Right.
Every single page.
Between the prose and the artistry of the writing and the points that he's making critically, I just, sir? How did you do that?
It's so good.
I even wrote a whole paragraph on this page.
She did.
Next,
So,
what did you read next?
Next, I read...
Oh, yes. And then the yes.
So I read Recitatif by Toni Morrison because, as you saw in our last book haul video from last week, it was $1.
Right.
It should have been $2 because it is a hardback. But I think they gave it to me for $1 because it's so small, or maybe it's an accident.
Maybe they didn't see you had 10 books in your hand.
It was a lot, yeah. It was kind of camouflaged in there.
Which is fine.
Anyway,
Okay.
Recitatif by Toni Morrison is such a tiny, tiny little book. And most of this book is taken up by the introduction by Zadie Smith, actually.
Which we love her.
Yes. So that gave a lot of good insight. But I kind of wish I read it after I read the book. Like, I wish I read the book and then her introduction, because it kind of told me everything the book was going to be about. Anyway, so the book is about these two girls that grow up in a, what do you call it? I guess like an orphanage. They have parents, their parents can't take care of them at the moment. Their names are Twyla and Roberta, okay? And, the way, Tony, anyway, so...
The way you make them both black.
The way you make me think. So, this book talks about them, and one of them is white, and one of them is black, but she never explicitly tells you which is which. And you are called to challenge your biases as you read the book, and you can read it and come up with your own conclusion and be like, oh, this one's black and this one's white. But you'll never know.
You'll never know.
You'll never know.
How are they gonna know?
Because the assumptions you're making are based off of stereotypes and things that you assume to be true about a culture. And I'm not saying you. This was how I was reading it too.
No, and I read it like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, this one's definitely the black one. But you're like, but that's true of, that could be true of white people too.
Right,
Like it doesn't it's not necessarily a black thing.
Dang.
So you read the whole book, and then it talks about how like a friendship can change, and how your lives can like be so close when you're young, and then like diverge, and then reconverge, and then diverge again, and like what can change in those divergent periods. And I think it was not only a great meditation on friendship and told a story about a friendship over time, but also like a thought exercise for the reader. So to write a story like that and do that purposefully is honestly so impressive.
And it's so short.
And it's so short. This is only my second Toni Morrison book, and I
bought a lot, so
yeah, and I'm very happy that I own it.
Me too.
I highly recommend. It's so short.
To me, that's a must read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll make you think. It made me think for a long time.
And the audiobook, I think, is like 40 minutes. Like, just do it.
Just
like,
do it. Yeah.
Okay, what's next? Oh, you read this
buddies.
Next.
Yeah,
one of our buddies. One of the books we read. Oh. We rated this one the exact same.
Okay, so this one, as well as Between the World and Me, showed up on the New York Times Top 100 list.
Oh, yeah.
Check out that video. And I bought this book a long time ago. I bought it to be part of like my summer reads, and I read it in the summer.
And a lot of y'all in the
John.
comments were like, please read it so soon.
If you look at the summer TBR video, you'll hear me say like, it's about like a dad and his son on like a trip, on a journey. And someone in the comments was like, it's definitely not about a trip. It's not about a trip. I was so wrong.
It's not about a trip at all.
So this takes place in like a post-apocalyptic, burnt out America. Everything is like ashen and very dry. This dad and his son are just on the road, and they're looking for survival, right? Think like kind of The Last of Us, except there's like no infection.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually thought of The Last of Us when I was reading this.
Yeah, okay, same. So there's no zombie, there's no anything like that. There are
humans.
Just other humans that are so scary.
At their breaking point, willing to kill and eat humans.
Yes, yeah. It is, you have to do what you do to survive, right? Like, that is, and everyone has that same mindset. Okay, so read your trigger warnings, because there are some things in here that you want to be careful of, but the relationship between the dad and the son is so tender, and it really is like asking the question of how far will you go to protect the people you love, like what will you have to compromise, where are the times that you will fail, and you will fail, and what do you do in those times? How do you bring someone who's so young and doesn't understand and doesn't have a memory of the world before this time through a struggle like this? There are so many times when the child is like, and we're still the good guys, right? Like, are there other good guys out there? And, yeah. So the book doesn't have any quotes, no quotation marks, and there's a lot of things that normal writing would have. But and I mentioned it to Sierra, because at first I was kind of frustrated about it. I was like, where are the quotation marks?
And where are the apostrophes? Where are the commas?
And then as I was reading it, and as she started to read it, I told her, I was like, maybe it was Cormac McCarthy doing it on purpose, and the world that you're reading about is so barren and resources are so scarce that maybe he's trying to put into the writing the idea that we don't even have space for quotation marks, for apostrophes, for like he said with emphasis, like things like that. It is very stripped down, the writing, because that is how these people are living. It is only the necessities are included.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the only apostrophes and commas that are used is for clarity.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's only there if it would mean another word.
Yeah.
Or it'd be confusing to not have it word-wise. Or the comma's only there if, like, it needs to be. But a lot of times there would be two independent clauses that would just be running through because you just don't have time for commas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really beautifully done. I've never seen, like, I related so much to the little boy in this story and felt so much like him. And my dad is so much like the dad in this book. Like, he would do anything for me, and I know that. And, like, I've never seen it portrayed in a book like this, where I was like, I know if I asked my dad this question, this is exactly how he'd respond. Yeah. And then I'd push back, and this is exactly how he'd respond back. And I felt so much love for my dad because of this book. I'm so grateful for, like, all that he has done for me to be able to live the life that I do. So even though it was post-apocalyptic, I left feeling really full of love, you know, and care for my family. So
that's so nice.
It's a beautiful book.
It was so good. There were so many times that I was on the verge of tears because the decisions that have to be made. If you read this book, literally anything that has to do with the wife, if you know, you know. So I gave it a 4.75. It might get boosted up to a 5 over time. It's one of those.
You gave it a 4.5.
I did? That's crazy. I lied to you, and I'm sorry. I might boost it to a 5 still.
Yeah, that's fair. And then I was 20 pages into this poetry collection, Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear by Musab Abu Toha. It's a Palestinian author, so I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. They are poems directly from Palestine. So this author is a scholar, has established a library in Palestine, was a visiting professor, I think, in Oxford or somewhere in England. Really renowned, well-read, and acclaimed author.
Nice.
I didn't love the poetry as much as I wanted to, but I thought it was an articulate depiction, an emotional depiction of what's going on, and I think I need to respect that no matter what kind of thing. I think whenever there's war, whenever there's genocide, whenever there's pain, like, respect. Yeah. You know? That's kind of my MO. But I think writing-wise, I inherently am starting to, like, compare poetry collections that I'm reading, because I'm starting to read them more often. Okay. I haven't read a lot, but the last one I read was Cannibal by Sophia Sinclair, and I think that might be the most stunning poetry collection I've ever read. Yeah. I read Night Sky with Exit Wounds by Ocean Vuong, and that was stunning. Okay, good. So I think, like, right now, poetry-wise, like, what's on the paper poetry, it's Sophia Sinclair's Cannibal, Night Sky with Exit Wounds, and then Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear. But I think that this was really well done. Like, my friends who are from Palestine have shared a lot of their experiences with me, and so it was helpful to put to words to that, kind of on paper, where I don't have to, like, ask my friends about their experiences, and I can just be there and present to have them share, and for me to gain more knowledge on my end. So I thought this was a really good way to do that. So thank you, At With Cindy, for shouting this book out. I picked it up because of you, and thank you for the great recommendation.
So if you watched our book haul video from last week, you saw that I picked up Before the Ever After by Jacqueline Woodson in a tiny little local bookstore.
Sorry, I don't know what else so funny to me. A tiny little. And then I choked on the air.
Yeah, a lot happened for you. So this is about a... okay, let me figure this out. This is about a boy, a middle school age boy. His name is ZJ, and his father, who is a pro football star. And his father takes a lot of hits. Which, let's talk about football for a second. Okay, football is a crazy sport. It's America's favorite, and that's fine. It's fun. I get it. I'm clearly not a football guy. But...
And you know me, sports.
Yeah. The thing that's crazy to me about football is, like, the object of the game so many times is to throw your body into the other person. And that's not what your body's for. So we, like, put pads and helmets and all of that, but you're still doing so much damage. And that's what this book is talking about. It is important to say that this book is talking about it in, like, the 2000s. And technology has only gotten better in regards to padding and helmets. So, like, sure, we're doing a better job.
And, like, what we know about what brain damage happens.
Correct.
When you have impact often.
Yes. Specifically the, like, syndrome, the, I guess, disease that this book is talking about is called CTE, chronic traumatic chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Man, that's so weird.
You did it.
Encephalopathy.
You did even better.
Thanks.
Very good.
Which is, it's a degenerative brain disease found in athletes and others who have suffered repeated blows to the head. So it's probably really common in boxing and things like that. So we have ZJ, and Jacqueline Woodson, and she did this in Another Brooklyn too. She loves, apparently, groups of friends of, like, 4, and they are, like, a squad, and the squad rolls deep, and they are there for each other, and they are so tight-knit. In this case, it's the squad of middle school boys, ZJ and his friends, and they are all, like, hanging out together, and his dad is, like, a local hero. Everyone knows who his dad is, and... like, they'll be playing football, they'll be hanging out, and then one day, his friends come over, and his dad, like, has been showing signs of issues, but, like, nothing crazy, and they, like, had music playing. Music is a very big theme in this book as well, and he comes in, and his dad is like, you guys need to turn that music down, and then he's, like, looking at these friends who he's known for, like, a long time, and he's like, and who are these kids anyway? And... they, like, kind of don't know if it's a joke or what's going on. And they're like, like, Dad, like, you know these guys. And then he, like, kind of leaves. And anyway, so that's kind of the start of the decline. So for me, personally, here we go. Like, a lot of the people in my life as I've gotten older have struggled with their memory. And there's a point in this book where ZJ has to explain to his dad who he is to him, and that got me because I've had to do that multiple times with people in my life, and it never gets easier. So if you know anything about that, like, I'm sorry that you had to deal with that. I know exactly how it feels. It's rough. It's beautiful. The leaves symbolism, the music symbolism, like, you just read the book. Read the book. It's so easy. Read Another Brooklyn. So far, Jacqueline Woodson has not missed. When I tell you that my eyes were stinging the entire book, that is 100% true. From, like, the beginning to the end, I was like, why did you do this to me?
Yeah, so fair.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Well, that's it.
That's it.
That's another month.
Yeah.
We did it.
We
We read.
One more down the drain.
What'd you read?
Yeah. How are you feeling now? Are
You
you still drinking water? But yeah, thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
See ya.